Hello and welcome to The Scramble. I'm Jenny Liese. Today we'll discuss the increasing number of public shootings and if we need stricter gun control laws. Also, we'll talk about how many states are legalizing gay marriage. Joining us, our group of panelists. We have back with us Jason Holley, a graduate student in journalism and media studies. Padilla, a senior with a double major in journalism and media studies and political science. Tomi, Lahren, a senior in journalism and media studies, and Chynna, Greene, a senior in journalism and media studies. Thank you all for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Public and school shootings have been on the rise in recent years, especially in the last few months. We want to discuss why this is happening and how to prevent it. There's also a new study saying gun violence is becoming more rapid in PG-13 movies. Do you think there needs to be stricter gun laws? And do you think violence in the media contributes to gun violence?
We have to bifurcate the difference between ratings for movies or films from the MPAA and actual violence in society. There need not be the depolarization of those two issues because they're independent of each other. And to postulate that one affects the other is to perhaps postulate the hypodermic needle theory, which has been disproven many times over. So we have to look at independent small effects. That is, how do these increasingly violent media affect violence in society? The research has shown, which is one of the areas I specialize in, that it's quite small. Correlations have been no larger than 0.10 essentially. So you could say that's 5% of the population at most that have been affected by violent media.
And I would tend to agree with you. I think that the issue, if we're talking about school shootings and the gun control debate in general, we need to understand that it's a multidimensional issue. So anytime you have a rampage or a school shooting, it's not caused by one thing. It's not caused by the gun. It's not caused by the violent media or video games. It's not caused by, mental health. Anything entirely. It's a multidimensional issue, so it needs to be addressed from all angles. And I think it'd be a mistake to say it's one thing, and that's what contributes, fully to the rampages. But I do agree with your point. There's a very weak correlation between violence in the media and these school shootings.
Yeah, there's a very weak correlation. Absolutely.
I mean, that being established, I still think that these things are happening more often. I think that societally we are more comfortable with violence and we're comfortable with the escalation because it wouldn't go there if we didn't go there as a society.
And can you repeat that one more time?
Yes, the violence, we escalate it. I think that we've become more comfortable with violence societally, and that has increased the violence that we expose ourselves to and that we are exposed to. I think that,
So would it be fair to say, are you trying to say that these nut jobs that go out and shoot people at schools, they have in the back of their mind that this is societally okay?
No, I'm saying that they see it happen and it happens more and more often. And I'm saying that that's an escalation.
Or how about the news, the media coverage of these violent shootings and these persons name coming out there and then becoming infamous? Do you think that possibly escalates further incidences of this happening?
In certain incidents, I definitely think so. We just saw in the New Jersey mall shooting, nobody was killed in that instance, but he did go to the mall and he made a scene and he ended up taking his own life. But I think part of it is he wanted to go out with a bang, no pun intended, and that's how he chose to do it. So I think our media is very reactionary in that way instead of preventative, because obviously things are going to make news when they happen. We have to cover them. But yeah, I do think there's a little bit of a glorification with how much media attention that those shootings do get after the fact.
To state the media is preventative or not is again to postulate the hypodermic needle theory, which is fallacious intrinsically, because we do know from research that the hypodermic needle theory is absolutely not supported statistically. And so what we have to look at is things other than the media. The media are one outlet from which these shootings are made known, and we cannot state that media or violent media, essentially, you can even extend that to video games, are affecting the perpetrators of these crimes more rapidly, or that they more people are being affected by
the media
this.
also aren't everywhere. They can't cover all of the violent crimes that are happening. The statistics are so much more than what is shown, and that's, I think, a pertinent point to make. Despite as glorifying or not as the media can be of violence, there's not a camera there every single time a gun goes off and a crime is committed and a body is bleeding out. There's just not.
To think that society is extremely dangerous, perhaps even more dangerous than what the media depict, is very closely tied to cultivation theory and what's called the mean world syndrome. That is, the more that you engage in media consumption, the more that you consume media, perhaps you could say that more that you consume TV, news, the meaner the world is, essentially, according to that particular
But I'm talking
viewer.
about people who don't have time to watch TV and violent video games because they're out slinging drugs and trying to feed their families. I'm not talking about that.
Well, I'm talking about the individual consumer of media.
But also statistics show that school shootings have been ever increasing, and I think right now we're at record numbers for school shootings, like within the last several decades. I mean, school shootings have been going on since the 1700s or so, but the rate that they're happening and the amount of deaths are rapidly increasing.
So I guess moving away from the media aspect of it, I'd be interested to see what are the solutions? What do you guys think? We've all established that they are increasing, so how do we prevent it?
I think actually establishing controls or limitations for people to have guns secured in their homes it's a great suggestion. It's seriously something that should be looked at, especially if it's kids that are committing the violence or kids that are being exposed to it, because yes, you're allowed to buy a gun, but who else has access to it?
And I really want to address your point because this is a really hot button issue for me. I come from a very conservative state. I come from South Dakota. We have very lenient gun laws in our state, and we don't have the violent crimes that are being experienced in Connecticut and New Jersey and places where gun laws are very strict. I grew up in a house that we have guns. My dad has guns. I was taught about them. There wasn't a stigma. I wasn't afraid of them. They weren't this quandary for me. I understood them, and I think that that's very important. And the fact that, we're talking about gun control laws and you're talking about the children's access, that goes back to each individual parent. And a kid that, they shouldn't be able to access those guns, but they wouldn't be able to go out and buy a gun in the first place. So making gun laws more strict is not going to prevent some loony bin from getting a gun.
But you also didn't hear what I said. I didn't say that we should restrict parents. I said we should try to formulate or suggest to parents how they can better protect their homes and their children by maybe putting the gun in a safe, by maybe establishing gun classes where parents and kids can go together.
Absolutely.
I wasn't articulating
I'm
that
so
point.
sorry I didn't understand your point, but I definitely agree with your point.
But
think
going
we're
off of
missing
that,
something here.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there should be gun control, or there shouldn't, that goes back and forth. But if a kid wants to kill people, he's gonna go right in his kitchen, grab a knife, and do the same thing. It doesn't matter if it's a gun or a knife in the kitchen. If the kid is plotting on killing people, he's gonna kill people. It doesn't matter if it's locked up in a safe.
Yeah, but the potential for damage there, like a knife versus a gun, I think that's really, especially with the large number of recent public shootings, that's still in the back of everybody's mind, so there's still that extra angle of fear.
I'm gonna have to cut you off there, but we'll be right back with more on this topic after the break. All right, and that's perfect time. We're gonna go to break, and we'll be right back after this.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs?
Totally.
Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands?
My son has lots of dolls.
But did you know terry cloth diapers breathe better?
I did.
It's totally true.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys know statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat. Visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat to make sure your child is protected.
NFC, AFC, offensive linemen, defensive tackles, quarterbacks, and cornerbacks are all living united to ensure the academic success of millions of kids in our communities all the way to graduation day. But that won't happen without you. So take the pledge at unitedway.org. Make a difference in the life of a child. Suit up like your favorite NFL players and become a volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor with United Way.
Welcome back. We're talking about public shootings and gun control. And before the break, I cut you off, Bree, so I'll let you finish your thought.
No, that's all right. I lost the thought. It's fine.
You were talking about angry children and
Yes. I think that one of the reasons why there's a little bit more fear right now is because we're coming so hot off of this happening in our country, and I think that an angry kid with a gun does a lot more damage than an angry kid with a knife.
Well, plus, I mean, this happened recently, in Sparks, Nevada, where a teacher stepped in the way and lost his life in protecting students. So, I mean, this is also like close to home. And
Jenny, I think if we also control for population growth historically, we would find that that control variable would actually yield perhaps the same or fewer instances of violence compared historically. It's just that our increased media consumption leads us to believe that that is not the case, that these things are happening more often than they used to. And these studies don't control for that as well, that we've had almost perhaps exponential growth or substantial growth in population. So once we consider that variable, we actually find that violence in schools has gone down. But because of our media consumption, because it's so high, we tend to think it's gone up. We all suffer from this quasi-mean world syndrome because we consume media. Our worldview is largely driven and steered by media worldview.
And, to your point, I think when we move into discussing gun control, I think that's a very knee-jerk reaction. Anytime something like this happens, the first thing is to blame the weapon. And I think that that's the easiest thing to go after because that's right up front, and then the gun control debate begins again and again and again. And I think there's other issues here. Every time this happens, it's always a mental health component, and I really think that needs to be addressed, especially in schools. And we just came out with a report with the Lindsay Institute here at UNLV saying that Nevada does suffer from a high rate of mental illness in children that's not being adequately addressed. So, like I said, I think it's multidimensional.
Yeah, but also, if you do take into consideration mental stability and background checks, that would also impose more restrictions on people who try to get guns.
But there is background checks, and if we're talking about more background checks, you're talking about the Brady bill in particular, I do agree with background checks, but we kind of have to remove ourselves from that as well because if we're talking about students, they're not buying these guns anyway. Like in Nevada, you're not 21, you can't buy a gun. So when we're talking about school shootings, the mental health component is more they're getting these guns, but what's going on in their head, and that's what needs to be addressed. Because like Chynna said, they're gonna find a way to commit their crime if they have mental issues.
And just in general, especially after the recent mall shootings in New Jersey, there's been writers that have gone out and said, of course we need more gun control laws, of course we need more background checks, of course we need more limits on ammunition. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think that there should be more limits on ammunition? Do you think there is enough gun control laws?
I think it's a knee-jerk reaction. I think it's suppositional, and I think there needs to be additional thought put into this.
I think it would be really funny to see who actually profited from the ammunition and gun sales every time somebody threatened that Obama would take away their guns.
But to that point,
it's a neo-Marxist, rhetorical view. But I mean,
and to
didn't
your
say I was
point,
wrong.
It's entertaining.
I'm glad you actually said that, Bree, because it has, since Obama got elected, every time a liberal or more liberal president is elected, gun sales and ammunition sales go through the roof, especially with Obama, because people got very nervous there. But I think in a way, that's a way to gauge public perception and public opinion. And at the end of the day, we are a republic, we are a democracy, and if people are saying, leave my guns alone,
well, I mean, it's a way to gauge people or a way to manipulate the market. It really depends on who you're
that's your
talking
choice.
about.
If people are going out and saying, "Don't take my guns," and I'm going to protect myself, I'm going to buy ammunition. That's the people speaking.
If you're a lobbyist for a gun company, you want your
I'm going to have to cut
product
you
to be
off
sold.
there. Sorry, Bree. All right, and we'll be back with more after the break.
Ever wonder what makes us, the Smurfs, so happy? The forest, of course. This is where we, along with the beautiful forest creatures, make our home with beautiful plant life, clean water, and endless adventures. It's a place to celebrate. So discover the forest with your family today. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
Oh, hey, bud. Where are you headed?
Just gonna hang out.
With Gary and Todd?
Yeah.
I've been meaning to ask you, is there any drinking going on in this crowd?
No.
If any of your buddies ever pressure you to take a drink, just tell them you promised your dad you wouldn't. I'd do anything to keep you safe.
Okay, I will.
I hope this is working.
I promise. Love you too, Dad.
They really do hear you. For tips on what to say, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
We have a job to do out here today.
To be a winning team, you have to work like a winning team.
My team depends on me.
And my team is 50,000 strong. Looks like a lot of work's going into this.
This is what it feels like to be part of a team.
A winning team.
The Action Team.
Get in on the action at actionteam.org. Are you in?
Welcome back. We're moving on from gun control, and we're going to talk about gay marriage. Now, Hawaii and New Jersey are the latest states to legalize gay marriage, with Illinois poised to approve gay marriage legislation by the end of the month, making Illinois the 16th state to legalize same-sex marriage. The historic Supreme Court rulings in June struck down Proposition 8 and DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, which paved the way for recent legalizations. Now, what are your thoughts, and which states do you think will be next? Let's start with you, Chynna. Or what are your thoughts on the recent legalizations?
Well, my point and where I stand is I don't understand why the government is involved in anybody's love life. I don't see why gay marriage should be against the law anywhere. I mean, if you love somebody, you love somebody. I don't think the government should stay in there or get in there and say, oh, you can't marry them because you're a woman and she's a woman, so that's not okay. It's not their business, it's not their life, and if somebody's happy like that, just let them be happy. I don't understand.
Yeah, and just speaking to your point, I actually agree with you, which I consider myself to be fiscally conservative as we were talking, but I'm socially a little bit more moderate, and I understand what you're saying as somebody that believes in the Constitution and believes in the least amount of government interference possible. I agree with your point, leave people alone. But I also think that we do need to leave it up to the states, because each state needs to dictate what they want to do in that regard. Some states, like my home state, will probably never legalize gay marriage, and I still think that needs to be left up to the voting public.
I understand that, but at the same time, my sister is actually with a girl right now, and they plan on getting married. It's not legalized in Nevada, but they're going to go to another state, get married there, come back, and then they're going to be married. And it just, like, it doesn't make sense to me why.
Well, and speaking to that, like, I think I agree with you, first of all, and we still have a really long way to go, because not all of DOMA has been repealed, and states can still choose to recognize a marriage or not. And that's one of the key things that has been hindering a lot of people. So, like, your sister's marriage would or would not be recognized at the state's discretion. Right. Coming off of that, though, I think that there's kind of been a reorientation of the right to marry whoever you want as a civil right, as a civil liberty, and as that it is protected by the federal government, even beyond state rights, I think. So I think that it shouldn't be left up to the states. I think that it's a right that everybody should have, and I think that it's changing ultimately, and I think maybe even one day South Dakota will come
and,
will come
I agree
along.
with you. I think we are moving towards that. I think it's a progression, but I think that you're going to startle states like in the Midwest that are conservative by, coming out and saying this is a federal mandate. I think you're going to startle them, and I think you're going to just intensify the debate instead of letting it naturally progress. And in that way, I think there'll be less hostility, and I think it'll just move more naturally.
We talk about progression, and really what we're actually talking about is regression, because marriage is a social construction of reality. Marriage is nothing more than a contractual relationship, or if you will, a contractual binding thing between two people. And for us to posit that we need to legalize this thing that we call marriage, is nothing more than a reinforcement that it is important. And through that reinforcement, we do nothing but perpetuate this kind of regressive ideology that we should be adhering to marriage.
It's completely archaic, though. I mean, it goes almost back to caveman days, that structure.
What structure? What are you referring to?
The archaic structure that you're referring to.
I don't know.
Of marriage, of a union between a man and a woman. It's structure.
If we
it's
talk
built
about
in.
if we talk about progression, we need to move past
if
these
people want
social
access
constructions
to
that we
though.
have been perpetuating for so long. That's progression. Progression is realizing that these things are created and sustained through interactions in society every day. And if we want to progress, we have to realize that, and we have to move past it.
Well, I agree, kind of. I agree that.
Hold on. Actually, Brie, go ahead and hold your thought, and we'll start with your thought after the break.
A full life, measured in seats, starts with the right ones early on. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Learn how to prevent deaths and injuries by using the right car seat for your child's age and size.
Hey, you going out like that?
Yeah, why?
Well, what would the neighbors think?
I see you. Come look at Mr. Feather. Look what I have. Mr. Bird, remember? Bark, bark, bark. We're just playing. We're just playing. I'm trying to get you out of here.
Even still.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Maybe he's really focused.
Hey, Michael. Michael. Maybe he likes spinning the wheels.
Maybe he just loves trucks.
Maybe he's just being a boy.
Preoccupation with objects is one early sign of autism. Learn the others today. The sooner it's diagnosed, the better.
Welcome back. We're talking about same-sex marriage, and before the break, Bria cut you off, so go ahead.
No, I was just responding to your point. I actually do agree that ultimately the ideal is progression past a point where there's any kind of gendered union built into society, but I think that in order to do that, I think that it can occur while there's a limitation to access, and that makes the differential poignantly felt to people who don't get it. So essentially, I think that the rights and the access that gay couples are not afforded right now makes that space more poignantly felt, which does not allow for us to move on past it.
There is only limitation insofar as there is not collective action. And if there is collective action, and through understanding the idea of this sort of arbitrary construct, at that point then there can be progress. But until then, there will just be this reinforcement of the archaic paradigm that people want to be a part of.
But if pensions and these institutionalized things with your benefits that are also connected to marriage and with inheriting, if that's also connected to marriage, then I mean we have to recognize this. So it's not like throw the baby out with the bathwater.
And to your point too, I think I think a lot of what you're talking about is very research based, and I think we're looking at it from a point, but most Americans don't look at things from a research based, and they won't, and people don't vote based on research. So it is the feelings that you're talking about. It is that feeling of, you know, why am I not afforded the same right as a heterosexual couple? So I think moving beyond the numbers and the constructs of you know, a false reality, let's live in the moment and let's address the issue where it is now.
Well, the false reality actually is the moment, and the research is the answer. So there needs to be continued. And what I'm referring to is a theoretical, esoteric
Right, exactly.
construct.
That's kind of what I'm saying. It's very theoretical. Like, let's base it in the here and now and what's going on in the country instead of the research.
What is your state? Like, what do they not want? Like, why will they not legalize gay marriage, you think?
You know, and that's the thing. Everybody in my state isn't for gay marriage. I come from a conservative state. That's the way it is. Whether be right or wrong, whether I agree with it or not. But let us move, not me in particular, but let states like mine move that way naturally. Don't push them, because people, especially in the Midwest, when you push somebody, they're going to pull back.
Well, going off of that, you said, our state isn't for gay marriage, but why does the state, why do other people, why do you?
Because you vote.
But why do you have any say in the relationship that I would have?
It's the same, anything that you vote on. I mean, whether we're voting on abortion, whether we're voting on gun laws, whether, any proposition that comes forward, whether or not the government should intervene or not is a whole other point, but that's the way we're set up. That's the way it's organized, that we vote on things.
But a gay couple they're gonna be together in public, they're gonna kiss in public, they're gonna live together. I don't understand what the issue is between being engaged or being married, besides the benefits, they're gonna be together either way, so why can't we just legalize it and, do it how everybody else does?
Right, I don't disagree with you on that point. I just believe in letting states move at their own pace.
I'm gonna have to stop you right there, and that's all the time we have for that part.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
I don't think anyone captured my first steps on camera. I was the 5th kid, and by that time, first steps weren't a big deal. I was 16 and driving home with my brother Ben. A distracted driver hit us. Ben died on impact. I had 47 days in a hospital bed for reality to settle in. With a major spinal cord injury, doctors said I would never walk again. But deep down, I knew I would. I prayed that every day. Family, friends, strangers, all started to pray for me to be able to walk again. The progress has been slow, and the victories hard-won, but I feel the prayers.
Whether you need support in a tragedy or just to make it through a bad day, prayer can make a difference. America, let's come together by believing with each other.
For someone to come alongside you and say, I'm going to believe with you, it means a lot.
Well, it's been a great heated discussion today, but that's about all the time we have for those topics. Thanks, everyone. Now you know what we think. Let us know what you think. Share your opinions and any ideas or topics you'd like us to scramble about to thescramble.unlv@gmail.com. You can also catch full episodes of The Scramble at unlv.tv. That's all the time we have for today. For all of us here at The Scramble, thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you next time.